The doctor's hands were trembling. I watched her fix her eyes on my file instead of the ultrasound screen, where my baby's tiny heartbeat flickered in black and white. No, her focus was entirely on the paperwork, on my husband's name printed neatly at the top. Then she switched off the monitor mid-exam, as if someone had pulled the plug on my life. "Mrs. Mercer," she whispered, her voice barely audible, "I need to speak with you privately right now." She led me to her office, closed the door behind us, and locked it. My mind raced. I thought something had gone wrong with the baby. My heart pounded so loudly I could hear it in my ears. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. Then she spoke words that shattered my world. "You need to leave your husband today. Find a divorce lawyer first." I laughed. Actually laughed. What? Why? We're having a baby. We're happy. I don't understand. "That's exactly the problem," she said, her face pale as paper. "What I'm about to show you will change everything you thought you knew about your marriage. But let me start from the beginning, so you understand how I ended up in this office 4 months pregnant, learning that my entire life had been built on lies told by the man who sleeps beside me every night. My name is Daphne Wilson. I'm 32. I work as a marketing director at a boutique firm in Connecticut, and I come from what people politely call old money. 5 years ago, my grandmother Eleanor passed away, leaving me her estate, roughly $2.3 million in a trust, and the historic Wilson family home, where 5 generations of women had lived, loved, and raised their children. I never flaunted any of it. I worked hard for my own career, drove a decade-old Subaru, and bought my morning coffee from the same cafe every day. The inheritance was security, not identity, but it made me a target, though I didn't realize it yet. I met Grant Mercer 4 years ago at my family's annual charity gala, a decades-long tradition hosted by the Wilsons. That year, I was standing at the bar, trying to escape a man who asked about my finances within 3 minutes of meeting me. Subtle, right? Then Grant appeared, tall, dark-haired, with an easy smile. He asked what I was drinking, joked about the terrible jazz band, and never once mentioned money. He claimed to be a financial advisor who'd received a last-minute invitation from a colleague and had no idea who the Wilsons were. Looking back, that should have been my first red flag. A financial advisor who attends a major charity gala without researching the host family. That's like a chef showing up to a cooking competition saying, "Oh, we're making food today, don't worry about the details." But I was tired of obvious gold diggers. Here was a charming man asking about my favorite books, not my bank account. We dated for a year. Grant was thoughtful, attentive, remembered tiny details. He insisted on paying for dinners, even though I could have bought the restaurant, and seemed genuinely sincere. My mother, Vivian, saw through him immediately. After their first meeting, she pulled me aside. "That man's smile doesn't reach his eyes," she warned. "Something's wrong with him, Daphne, I can feel it." I told her she was being paranoid, overprotective, maybe even jealous. We argued constantly about Grant. Eventually, we stopped talking for nearly 2 years, just birthday texts and nothing more, because I chose to trust my husband over my mother. Spoiler alert, Mom was right. And she's been waiting patiently to say, "I told you so." Grant and I married after a year of dating. The ceremony took place at my grandmother's estate, beautiful and intimate. He cried during his vows, tears streaming down his face as he promised to love and protect me forever. Looking back, those were probably the most honest tears he ever shed, not of joy but relief. His long game had finally paid off. After 2 years of trying naturally, we saw a fertility specialist. The diagnosis hit like a truck. Grant had severe male factor infertility. His sperm count was nearly non-existent, and the few that were present barely moved. Natural conception was effectively impossible. Grant seemed devastated at first, crying in the car for 20 minutes, apologizing as if it were his personal failure. I comforted him, reassuring him we'd face it together. That's what marriage is supposed to mean. What I didn't know was that his tears were not of grief, they were of calculation. All that emotion was him recalculating, not mourning. We chose IVF with ICSI, where a single sperm is injected directly into an egg, our best shot. Grant insisted on researching clinics himself, found one he claimed was perfect, and handled all the paperwork. I thought he was simply being supportive. When the first cycle failed, I couldn't get out of bed for 3 days. He held me, whispered encouragement, promised we'd try again. 7 months ago, the second cycle succeeded. A positive pregnancy test, 2 pink lines that changed everything. I cried happy tears. Grant held me close, talking about nursery colors, baby names, the life we'd dreamed of together. He casually mentioned I should update my will now that we were a family. I thought it was practical and sweet, never suspecting he was already counting my grandmother's money as his own. Everything seemed perfect. And then, 3 months later, a stranger with shaking hands would show me documents that burned my perfect life to ashes. The fire had been set by the man who slept beside me every night. By 4 months pregnant, subtle changes began in our marriage. Grant started keeping his phone face down everywhere, changed his passwords, stepped outside for calls he claimed were work emergencies. He would come back, redirecting conversation before I could ask questions. "Stock portfolios," he said. "Important client matters." But the stock market doesn't work on weekends, unless he had secret clients in Tokyo, which he didn't. His late nights multiplied. 3, sometimes 4 nights a week, until midnight. I discovered receipts, $280 for dinner downtown, a hotel room 40 minutes from home. When I asked, he had ready answers: client dinner, late conference. When I pressed, he snapped, "Daphne, you're being paranoid, it's the hormones." And just like that, I felt ashamed for questioning him. That's how convincing he was. At the same time, he began pressuring me about money. "Add me to your trust, power of attorney, common sense." He suggested selling my grandmother's home and investing the proceeds, citing returns he knew were perfect. I refused. His warmth evaporated. He became distant, began sleeping on the far edge of the bed, claiming I moved too much while pregnant. Arguments multiplied. He'd punish me with silence for days. His principles apparently had a deadline: when he got hungry. The intimacy between us vanished. He blamed my changing body, saying he didn't want to hurt the baby. It felt like rejection in my bones. When I tried to confront him, he told me I was needy, hormonal, difficult. One night I woke at 2 a.m. and found him in the kitchen, hunched over his phone, whispering, "It's almost time. By spring, everything will be settled." He saw me, hung up immediately, and muttered, "Work emergency." I was too exhausted, too pregnant, too desperate to question him further. My friend Tara came for lunch the next week. She watched me make excuse after excuse for Grant. Finally, she said, "Daph, listen to yourself. When was the last time you talked to your mom? When was the last time Grant was genuinely happy to see you?" I couldn't answer. "Trust your gut. Something is wrong." Then came my 4-month ultrasound with Dr. Claire Brennan, my substitute OB, alone, as Grant had a client meeting. She was professional and warm, small talk as she set up the equipment. But when she opened my file, her face changed. She stared at my husband's name, back at me, back at the paper. Her hands trembled. She turned off the monitor. "Mrs. Mercer," she whispered, "I need to speak with you privately." I followed her to the office, panic surging. Then came the words that shattered everything. "I know what your husband did, and I have proof." She pulled a folder from her desk, hands shaking. "My younger sister works at your fertility clinic. 3 weeks ago, she came to me crying and told me everything. When I saw your husband's name on your file just now, I recognized it immediately." Dr. Brennan explained that Grant had bribed clinic staff to switch his sperm with a donor's. The embryologist, the nurse, both paid. The plan, a successful pregnancy, build the perfect father-to-be persona, and then, after birth, frame me for adultery via a DNA test to trigger our prenup's infidelity clause, securing $500,000 and more. He'd spent $50,000 on the scheme. The donor was Derek Sykes, a 28-year-old grad student paid $15,000 for the sample. The embryologist cooperated. Grant even embezzled $53,000 from his clients to fund it, and $180,000 in gambling debts loomed over him. My grandmother's money was meant to save him, and he was willing to destroy me completely to get it. Shock, disbelief, and then clarity washed over me. I realized every late night, secret call, and calculated charm had been part of this scheme. He thought I'd crumble, thought I'd be weak. He had no idea who he married. I gathered the evidence, connected with Molly, the nurse, who agreed to testify. The embryologist cooperated. My mother, finally, became my ally. Within days, I had a lawyer, a prosecutor, and the evidence ready. The party at my grandmother's estate was set. Grant believed he was orchestrating the ultimate father-to-be performance. Champagne, family, friends, he was in his element. But police officers, lawyers, and witnesses were strategically placed. When he suggested a DNA test at the party, thinking he'd catch me in a trap, I revealed the truth instead. I showed the original clinic records, the bribery payments, the donor's identity, the embezzlement, and photos of his affair. Gasps rippled through the crowd. His mother sobbed. His father refused to look at him. Molly Brennan stepped forward, Derek Sykes spoke, and then 2 police officers arrested him on the spot. Grant's smirk vanished, replaced by shock, desperation, and finally silence. He had miscalculated entirely. 4 months later, my baby was born. Healthy, perfect, innocent. Derek Sykes had no parental role, but my child had me, my mother, and the Wilson family legacy. Family isn't about DNA, it's about who chooses you every day. My mother and I repaired our bond. She never gloated, only asked how she could help. I learned real love doesn't need to be right, it just needs to protect you. Grant Mercer, the man who tried to ruin me, would serve years in prison. Stripped of everything he had tried to steal, my baby and I, surrounded by family, finally breathed freely. The Wilson women endure. We bend, adapt, survive, and rise from ashes stronger than before.